and give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.
Dear colleagues, Chair, we are grateful to the Secretary-General for his comprehensive report on the work of the DPI, and we note that it is comprehensive and full of information. Overall, we welcome the most recent achievements of the DPI in ensuring new media can be worked, but also preserving traditional media. The Russian delegation welcomes efforts focused on ensuring that the work of the DPI is more effective, in demand, and relevant to modern realia. We support the renewed practice of informal briefings for members of the committee, despite the fact that we have always wanted to know more information than you provide. Nevertheless, we believe that this is a vital aspect of our joint work between meetings of the committee. The result of all these reform processes in the DPI should be increasing the effectiveness of all the media resources of the organisation. This work needs to be done clearly in compliance with the purposes and principles of the United Nations. All innovations should be within our budgetary capacity. More rather than reforming something, we need to clearly understand where we are moving. After that, we also believe that expert assessment and planning of future reforms must be done first and foremost with the efforts of the department itself and with the consent of member states. Other formats, for example, involving external experts, whose names we are not informed of for some reason, not only requires further funding, but also does not enable transparency of DPI's decisions. In our view, involving external experts on such a sensitive topic as the department's reform must be agreed upon by member states. Chair, we welcome the special activities in the Secretary-General's report dedicated to the 70th anniversary of the peacekeeping operation of the UN. We also welcome the outreach initiatives on human rights, including in the light of the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the centenary of the birth of Nelson Mandela. We support the desire to ensure more active involvement of young people in international efforts to strengthen peace and bring the Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030 to life. As we know, in September this year in Moscow, we successfully held a media seminar on peace in the Middle East. I'd like to note the work of the UN Information Center in Moscow here, and those working for this center worked in close collaboration with the Russian team to ensure that this important event went to the highest level. Chair, given the active promotion of the SDGs and the role of sport as an ideal tool to promote this, we are surprised to see that in the report there is no mention made of the work of the DPI and delegates of various countries to promote the main sporting event of 2018, the World Cup, the Football World Cup. And the leadership of the department actively assisted us, and also in everything that we did on activities linked to the World Cup in the UN, including they actively participated in the opening, and they photographed members of the Security Council and the Secretary-General in the football shirts of their national teams. And they did public shows of the showing of the matches. All of these activities were displayed in the information resources of the UN in all languages and very broadly. I'd like to highlight particularly that here we're not talking about simply events carried out by the Russian delegation. I'd recall the football match with the participation of global football stars and a whole orchestra that played, organised by the delegation. And there's also the special World Cup for Children dedicated to the SDGs, which was held by the co-chairmanship of Monaco, France, Germany, Morocco, Senegal and Russia with the support of UNICEF, UN Women, the SDG Fund and the Mayor's Office of New York and the New York Football Club. 8 school football teams from all ends of New York represented one national team and played in the World Cup. And they played. We would also joint initiatives of member states focused on strengthening mutual understanding, promoting sport, and supporting young people in the spirit of peace would allow us to promote, I would have thought, sustainable development goals. We need to make them available to the public. And we very much hope that those who wrote the report will rather pay attention to large-scale sporting and youth events on a global scale. Last year, for example, we managed to, when we spoke about the youth festival in Russia, the same thing happened. The statistical data, the growth of traffic on UN media resources demonstrates a generally positive trend. But if we look at every language separately, we can see that there is a high indicators because of visiting, first and foremost, focusing on English language media resources. The number of Russian and French versions of the websites are still low, and the Chinese version has actually fallen compared with last year. We are convinced that the UN can't just focus on those who speak English. Potential audience, for example, of Russian speakers is more than 300 million people across the world. If from one year to the next, indicators of those who use new services for some languages grows and the other falls, is it not time to change the strategy of the work? Setting out partnership links with large regional media players is something that we could think about. And we also call on the DPI to ensure fair allocation of resources and human resources between all official languages in line with their specific natures and demand. We are ready to work with other participants and member states, and also the Secretariat in the interest of addressing this disparity between languages. Chair, again, we've seen that the Ukrainian delegation is using any UN tribunal, any rostrum, to spread disinformation on the activities of Russia's policy. I'm not going to go into the substance of these groundless accusations, and will only say that a specialized international organization has on many times assessed this, that it is unlawlessness the media in Ukraine over the last few years with the connivance of the government. There has been murders and attacks on journalists, and media has been closed down, and this has become normal in Ukraine. And they seem to be so attached to democratic values, as we've just heard from them. The concern of Ukraine on the rights of journalists seemed to be demonstrated in the situation of Yuril Vashinsky. For several months, he's been arrested in Ukraine, and there is an alternative official position of Ukraine about the situation in their own country. It's a best illustration of the activities of our Ukrainian colleagues would be the May this year activity organised by the Ukrainian delegation, allegedly on the sidelines of the 40th session of the Committee on Integration. This committee, they reaffirmed on the many times, the Bureau of the committee did not agree with this, and they did not attend any side event. We believe that this side events saw participation from people who were snipers and people who were their own citizens of the southeast of Ukraine. We can all see that after this, there were threats of reprisals to some delegates. And according to data on Peter Brandt sent to, and we hope that based on this, measures will be taken. The Russian delegation expressed its support for the draft resolution of the General Assembly on information on humanity and UN's activities on public information. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation